Okay, oh my gosh, look at all you that showed up. Thank you so much for being here today. This is Video Production 101, a quick guide to content creation. A few quick housekeeping notes. In case any of you didn't know, the Chamber typically records these and they put them on their YouTube channel. You can go and search McLean County Chamber of Commerce and they have a playlist that's all the business eds from business eds pasts. And they were trying to record it with the camera, but they were having technical difficulties. So I'm going to guess they're going to record the audio, but I am also recording it in the back here. So there will be a video record of this. It says FlashCore Video right there. That's so that I can distribute it on my own channels, and if there's any good snippets, I can pull those out for different marketing purposes. You will see in front of you there's a cheat sheet. That is the most important foundational elements that we're going to go over. It's kind of the cliff notes, for lack of a better way to explain it. And in addition to that cheat sheet, there's a long format version of this class. I wrote everything out in like a 7-page PDF, and I hung it on my blog on my website. I'm not what I would consider a blogger, but I consider a blog a place to like hang information and to point people at for a reference. So the cheat sheet, in addition to a long format video, or excuse me, a document of this is all online. So me going through this anxiously up here, you're not going to, production's hard. You learn production by doing it, and you get better as you go. So hearing this class, it's just going to be best I can explain it to you, and then I highly advise you go and try to practice these principles that we go over today. So if you really want to learn this, that should be a fantastic resource. And in addition to the information that's available, there's also a couple of blog links that have the gear. There's a phone production list. That's the kind of lower budget stuff, like these little lights over here, and this little stand you might want to use for your phone, and this little microphone that we're going to go over in a little bit, all the way to there's a separate blog list that's higher end production gear. And they are Amazon affiliate links. I've never done the Amazon affiliate game. I did it on purpose for this class because I knew I was moving into this space. So just so you're aware of that. All right, jumping right into it. 20 years ago, I used to run around with a little digital video camera. I would hang out when my buddies were partying and I was the guy with the camera. Or when I go on my travels, I'd bring my camera with me. This was when the internet was still a baby. This was pre-social media days. Like guys like Michael Jordan, you know, like we're doing affiliate marketing, but influencer wasn't a term I'd ever heard of. So when I was capturing content 20 years ago, the last thing on my mind was social media and everything that we know about today. 20 years ago, I never would have imagined we'd have an HD camera in our pocket. Not even HD, these suckers shoot 4K. It's not the same 4K as the cameras back there. It's compressed and it's a different kind of file type. But it's incredible that we all have cameras in our pockets and we take it for granted. If you want to create content, you're a third of the way there. You buy a little $30 mic with your phone, and for a couple $100 of a light kit, by next week you're a YouTube influencer. Not exactly, but you get what I'm saying. For a small investment, you could be on your way to doing some legit video production. In the production effort, it kind of breaks down to 3 phases. You got pre-production, which is your planning, all the production, which is capturing your content, and then post-production, putting it all together. Before you start, sometimes it's a good idea to have your distribution in mind. You want to know what you're going to do with the content before you start creating it. That kind of falls into pre-production. I will say right now, obviously it's an hour-long little class. I'm not going to be able to get super in-depth with any one phase of production, but pre-production and post-production are going to get the most limited amount of attention. This is mostly focused on production. The majority of it's going to be light, camera, and sound. Get a little clicker. Pre-production. Pre-production can be as big of an effort or as small of an effort as you want it to be. I like to contrast anywhere from do-it-yourself phone video, which is kind of why we're here today, all the way to polished and produced content when you outsource like a production company, and then there's everywhere in between. When you're thinking about pre-production, it can be anywhere from this Friday afternoon, I got a free hour. Dylan says I need some video content. Pull out your phone and do a selfie, bang out 5 videos in your niche. You're going to put those out once a week. Now you got a month's worth of content to make sure you're just staying consistent. That's a very small pre-production effort. All the way to let's sit down with our team, discuss what our goals are. What's our budget? What's the end state? Again, back to your distribution. Is it a branding film that's going to hang on your website for the next 5 years? Do you want to storyboard it and script it? You see what I'm getting at? It can be a big effort, and you can plan it in much greater detail. The thing about pre-production is the more you plan in the beginning, the smaller the margin of error is later on, once you're to the production or post-production stages. If you don't know where you're going, it's kind of hard to get there. For bigger budget productions, oftentimes, they will use what they call a treatment. So if I sit down with you and you explain everything you want and all your goals, I might go back to the lab, and your idea and my idea needs to align before we start spending money and bringing people on board, right? So oftentimes what they'll do is write up a treatment. A treatment's a document that's basically me explaining my idea the best I can in written format. You can explain tone, mood, music, the visual. Is it speedy? Is it fast? Is it slow and deliberate? All the way to having pictures and links. It's the best of your ability to describe your idea to somebody. You get what I'm saying? Okay. Moving right into the production. Some of you here I recognize, and you follow me on social media. Oftentimes you'll see a picture of me with a camera and a light or something, and I say production days are my favorite. That's because they are. I love shooting. I like creating. Being in the field, engaging with people is fun to me. It's part of why I do this. Several years ago, if you would have asked me to do this, I probably would have focused on camera first. But of the three elements of production, they all work in tandem. You can't have one without the other. But light is quite possibly the most important variable. Video is the moving image. To create video, typically in 1 second, is 24 frames captured in 1 second. It's kind of like a photograph animation. They can go all the way up to 120, or they get higher frame rates for slow motion, but we're not going to get super tech savvy into it because we got our phones to automate everything. But that's just some sidebar information so you understand how this works. Back in the day, now everything's digital, right? We got digital sensors in our cameras. It used to be you load that film up, and whenever you crank that little film sucker, the film comes over, the shutter opens, and it exposes all that light, the available light in the room, whatever is shining off each individual, and then that shutter closes. Whatever light hits that film is how that image is created. It's the same thing for video, just 24 times in 1 second. So all the light matters. Light is what creates the image. I don't remember if it's Greek or Latin, but the word photography is literally photo to mean light and graphy to mean writing. Writing and light. Photography is lighting and light. And the moving image is 24 photos in a second. There's a lot of science involved in light with photons, and again, we're not going to get super in depth, and I'm not going to go there. The three main variables we want to focus on when it comes to light. I like the rules of three, and to keep it simple, small digestible bites for the purpose of a phone production. Intensity, temperature, and light quality. Intensity, for lack of a better way to explain it, or to say simply, is basically how bright is it. Back to the science. They got little light meters, and to get the precise output of a light, you can measure its intensity. It's measured in lumen or lux per, I think, a centimeter or square. And the reason that's important, or interestingly enough, these three variables are the same thing that will... Lost my train of thought. These three variables are the same thing that affect the price of your light. If a light is more intense, it's going to be more expensive. If it has more color options, it will be more expensive. And then the light quality is whether it's hard light or soft light. Okay, so light temperature. If you light a candle and you look at it, or you have a fireplace in your living room, the light looks orange. Fire's orange, that makes sense. All the way, if you look outside at the sun, you might not realize it, but the sun emits more of a white light. And then when it's cloudy and you got the sky involved, it's a little bit more of a blue light. In here, under that camera, you don't realize it, but these little tube lights is a weird kind of a green tint. So within the natural spectrum of light, before you start adding RGB, any of your reds or greens or blues, or any of your hues, within the natural spectrum of light, from yellow, white to blue, you can bounce it on your camera and it all looks natural. But there's 3 varying degrees of light temperature. And then light quality is probably the more, I don't want to say important one, but it's another very important one that affects the way the subject looks when it's illuminated. The best way to describe quality of light is to think of the sun. On a clear day when the sun's in the sky, if you hold up a shadow puppet, you're going to see a crispy shadow of what your hands look like. If you've got a long pinky nail, you might even see your pinky nail in the shadow. Versus if a cloud goes over it and you hold up that same puppet, it's going to be a much softer shadow. Or if you go out on a day like today when it's absolutely overcast and you try to hold up that same shadow puppet, you might not even see your hands. The reason being is light is linear. When it shines in a straight direction. Then whenever it hits a cloud, that is a diffusion. We have artificial diffusion on these studio lights. This is a softbox. Whenever it hits that cloud, oh, stand by. After temperature, I was supposed to change my slide. Whenever you have your light going in a straight line, when it hits that diffusion, the light scatters. That's why instead of hitting your shadow puppet and creating that crispy shadow, the light scatters and it almost wraps around it, so you're not going to get that same shadow. It's going to be a much softer shadow. Another thing to consider too is when I'm out standing in the sunlight, on my bald head, the sun's hitting me, 1, I'm going to grimace because it's too bright. And 2, you're going to get a spectral highlight. You're going to see that big highlight right here on my forehead, right? It's going to be very noticeable. Versus on a cloudy day, it's soft, pretty, flattering light. That's why it's not super uncommon to see when you're scrolling online, people do car selfies. Because unless the sun's super low in the sky, when the sun's above you, when you're in your car, you're basically surrounded 360 degrees by softboxes. It's soft, pretty, flattering light. Okay. Those are the basic elements to light, the most important 3 foundational variables. Then when lighting a subject, it's super common to have 2, 3, or 4-point lighting. I'm going to start with 4-point lighting, and then we'll work backwards. Whenever you're lighting a subject, imagine this room's dark, and I put that light on me. The main light lighting your subject is the key light. So now I'm illuminated, this looks good, but it's shadowy over here. Obviously there's a light coming from over here, it's going to be shadowy. Oftentimes you'll get a second light that's not as intense, back to your intensity, a less intense light that fills in those shadows. Hence they call it the fill light. And now anything that I say like that, don't be like, damn, Dylan said I got to do 4-point lighting, we have to have a key, we have to have our fill. This is just a theory, light theory, or it's just a way to do it. It's not the way to do it. There's times when you have a window, the window can serve as a beautiful key light. When the sun's up in the sky and you got a window open, you got a big, beautiful softbox right there. You can stand in front of that window, you got that pretty flattering light. Take one of these little guys and pop it over here as a little fill or a little side light, and it's going to look much better. So you got your key light, then your fill light. Then my very favorite light is the backlight. See this red light here and how it outlines this young lady here? Whenever you have your key light and your fill light on somebody, then oftentimes if they have dark hair or depending on what's going on in the background, their hair can kind of disappear and you don't see them. Whenever you add a light, this is almost perfectly positioned. Imagine that's up higher. You want it off and to the side and a little bit to the back. Because if it's too much to the side, it's going to hit the whole side of the face. When it's off and to the back, it will create this little crispy outline, and it's my favorite light to do. Now that I've brought it to your attention, when you're watching TV or movies, look out for it. And when you see them subjects or you see them actors walking around, they got that pretty little crispy light on the side of them. Just imagine if it wasn't there, and it just changes the dynamic. That little rim light, it just makes it pop. It makes it look cinematic, and it's my favorite light. And then, light is directional again, right? When you're lighting something, basically that's it. How strong is it? How intense is it? What color is it? Then is it hard or soft? I don't want to say that's it, but that's it. Then it's every variation of molding it and shifting it. You do want light here, you don't want light there. You can flag light. Put a stand up, literally just put a box in front of it so light only goes right past here. Now there's a shadow over here. I did a video recently in my little studio space, and I put my rim light over here. And in the frame, it just had this glow, and I hated it. You've probably seen lights before that got these little trap doors on them. Those are called barn doors for that very reason. So when something's lit here and it's spilling over there, you can turn that barn door to create that shadow. You're sculpting your scene with light. So when that light was spilling over, it wasn't a light that already had a barn door. So I literally just taped a piece of cardboard there. Bam, I was illuminated, I had my rim light, that spillage stopped, it did not have that glow anymore. That's all you're doing is molding your subject in your space with light. So with the backlighting and the background light. So with that being said, right, you got your subject looking good, key light, fill light, rim light. Then illuminate your background. I brought these in not because I wanted to look cool and have a fancy blue background. I like these. These are inexpensive uplights. You've probably seen these at events before. This can be a fantastic background light. You stick it on the wall here and it will illuminate that whole section. From here, that whole wall gets a spill of color, right? These aren't the most incredibly versatile thing because there's not a lot of diffusion you can do, but a little pop of color can go a long way. I have a light example video, but I think we'll get to that one in a minute. Okay. Because I'm going so fast, I was going to say hold questions to the end, but go ahead, Jen, what's up?
Do you have specific lighting textures that you use for specific moments or things that you're trying to do in a video? Like if it's more dramatic, do you have a setup for the lighting for that? Or if it's more funny, you have lighting for that? Like, do you have kind of your textbook way of lighting each type of video or content?
There are particular lighting scenarios for certain desired effects. Like I'm saying, like I said, when I share 3 and 4 point lighting doesn't mean this is how you have to execute to get the image to look like that. It's just a starting point. And I love to use the soft light because soft light tends to be more flattering. And then for the rim light, I don't have an exact answer for that, but I'm gonna skate around and explain my approach. Again, I love the soft flattering light as a key light for your subject. And then I've, not to be criticized, but I've had discussion with other people. When I do my rim light, that little pretty light along the back of yours, I don't mind that being a more harsh light because then you get that super crispy edge. You can use a soft light to get that same effect, but again, that will change the intensity and it will change that quality of light. And then to answer your question, I studied art before I got into film, and there's a lot of parallels. And when we get into the composition portion, I will mention that. I have an example. But the Baroque period of art was one of my favorite. It's super dramatic, and one of the key definitions of the Baroque period of art is a single light source. So oftentimes in Hollywood or bigger budget productions, if they want it to be dramatic, they will use a single light source. So I don't particularly have one say tit for tat, but like in corporate environments or something, you want it illuminated. You don't want it dark and gloomy, you know what I'm saying? So that is something definitely to keep in mind. Thanks, Jen. She's like, calm down, Dylan. I'm going to ask you a question to take you out of it real quick. For camera, again, I don't want to get super techie and specky with it. I started my degree here in Normal. I went to Heartland. While I was getting my associates, I wanted to learn the camera from the ground up. Anyone could put it in auto, pull out their phone, even though that's not a bad way to capture and to learn, but I wanted to know it from the ground up. So I took a film photography class with the darkroom and the whole nine, so I know all the mechanics of the camera. Because we have phones, you don't need to be that high-tech with it, and I don't want to bore you with it or overwhelm you like, damn, I gotta know. Here's an example. When I was trying to learn this stuff, I had a photography book, and there's a picture of a concert. You got the guy screaming into the mic, and there's sweat, and it looks amazing, right? Super shallow depth of field. He's the only thing in focus. Everything behind him is blurry. To me, that's a pretty cinematic image. How do I learn how to do that? You look on the bottom of that image, it'll say f2.5, ISO 500, and shutter 1/200. I'm like, so when I go to a concert and I want that look, I got to memorize that and get these settings. And I was like, that's incredible. I'm never going to learn all that. You don't have to learn that. There's a triangle that affects your image between ISO, f-stop, and frame rate. And it's each one affects the other one. So it's like if you crank your ISO up, it's going to make your image really grainy. So you want your ISO as low as possible. Again, it's way over the head techie, but this is the stuff that I was overwhelmed with. Like, I got to memorize 6,000 different series of numbers so I understand how to get this image. That's not necessary. You just got to know a few foundational things, and then other things affect other things, and you can still get your image. but I'm saying too much. When it comes to camera, again, the rules of threes. The three most important variables when shooting and when you're focused on camera department are composition, shot variety, I recognize this lady, and camera movement. Here's several of the examples of ways you can compose an image. I'm only going to focus on, again, three. The very top left one, you see the rules of thirds. Even before I got into video, when I was still exploring what I wanted to do, and I just remembered that I completely blew and forgot my intro. That's why we're short on time, or we're running early on time. The rules of thirds. Imagine you got your frame, and you put a tic-tac-toe board over it. I wonder if I can reach this without reaching. Anyway, so imagine you got your tic-tac-toe board. It's in thirds. You can put your subject right in the middle. It's a creative choice, and or if the only focus is the individual and what they're saying, you might want to stick your individual in the middle. But oftentimes, you will put that person on 1/3 of the frame in that first line. What that does is that invites the viewer to look beyond them. So if you just want a gentleman and he's speaking and he's talking about insurance or he's talking about banking, what's being extra? I saw Kyle and I was going to try to use him as an example. That didn't come out right. Okay, let me rewind. When you stick that person there, it invites the viewer to look into the background. So if I'm doing a video of a person in a restaurant, I might want to have that individual in that first third, and then now you see restaurant behind him. Or if we're at a car manufacturing plant, you see that individual, and now you see what I'm saying. It allows you to put other information into the frame. There's a much better explanation of rules of thirds than that, but you get what I'm saying. The next one is the golden spiral. And this brings me to the fine art example. Is anyone familiar with the golden spiral here? It's oftentimes replicated in nature. The masters used to use this in Renaissance paintings. You'd have like a Leonardo da Vinci picture, right? Say you only get to see that for 1 second and it disappears. You'll have some apostle pointing, and that's the very first thing that your eye's drawn to. You can't help but see it. And then if you actually take the time to look at that image, you'll see my man's pointing to this little house over here, and it's got a little trail, and then there's people. The masters used to use this in their paintings. It is a visual device to draw the viewer's eye around, and it can be used intentionally and deliberately. The other one I want to focus on is, where's she at? There's other examples that are similar. We'll say the pyramid. I didn't want to say the pyramid. The other one was a V. That was the example I thought I was going to use. I think it's on the other slide. This is asymmetry. Is anyone in here a fan of Wes Anderson? Excuse me. Wes Anderson is a film producer, major motion pictures. I'm not particularly a Wes Anderson fan. But something he's known for is the colors he uses in his movies. I'm not going to get into color theory. That's another entire class and just another whole can of worms we're not going to open. But another thing that he does quite frequently is use asymmetry. A perfectly symmetrical image that has balanced subject matter on both sides is it's powerful and it looks good. Especially when you got like strong parallel diagonal lines. Just a strong asymmetrical image can really stand out. And Wes Anderson is somebody who does it at a high level in Hollywood. All right, that is a brief explanation of composition. We're going to jump into shot variety. When I'm shooting stuff, I like to sequence something. If I know I'm going to have a lady walk in and she's going to open the door and then she's going to come inside, I can imagine that ahead of time. I want a wide shot of her walking on the street. I'm going to go into a very close-up of her hand opening that door. Then I'm going to go inside and I'm going to get a medium shot of her coming in. That makes sense. You're going to want that variety when you're sequencing together a shot. I also want you to consider shot variety. If you know you only want one shot of something, don't shoot it once and say, bam, I got it, and keep it moving. You might not have hung on that shot long enough. You might have seen something in your frame you didn't realize was there. When you go to shoot that one thing, shoot it multiple times. Get close, wide, and far away, because what you'll do is the first couple attempts, you'll think you got it. On that third or fourth attempt, you'll be like, oh, that's the angle. I got a foreground object. I see a little light back there. You get what I'm saying. Shoot that variety. You never know which one will land and be that perfect shot. So for instance here, we had Emily when we were shooting this shot at the Hive. And this was just to get coverage of showing the coffee machine. And I made a point. I wasn't like, I want to sequence this and get several shots of her. I just knew I wanted coverage of that. So we made a point to get close-ups, mediums, and wide shots. Next, we want to focus on camera movement. Back to Hollywood. When I say Hollywood, I just mean like big budget productions. They have a thing called a jib crane. It'll be this big long pole, and it's got like 50-pound weights on it with a giant camera on it, right? Imagine a big 20-foot pole, and it's got this big crank on it that will traverse the camera around. So imagine you have that sucker up down low here. That camera's way up high in the sky, 10, 15, 20 feet up. They will swing that joker down, or they will lift that up and swing it around and traverse that. So what you see will be a big wide shot of a neighborhood, and it'll swing down and around and go to the front door. When you see it at home, you don't realize, wow, that was a jib shot. That was so dynamic. You just see it and it looks cool. And if you didn't know how it was created, you might not think like, you had some dude over there with the camera 20 feet in the air and he swung that sucker around. Or you might see it and think, how did they do that? Not that you need a jib for your camera, but it's just to illustrate the point that you can get creative and you can do stuff with your camera that resembles these fancy Hollywood shots. You can have a static shot, just hold it. You can get this cheap little $10 stand right here if you don't have a lovely assistant to hold your phone. Bam, right here. I shot one of these in my studio. I got an example video. I was going to have somebody help me with my example video. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. That's hilarious. Nothing to see here.
Here comes the fire department.
That's so funny. Hopefully, okay, I think we're good. That was planned. Okay, I got everyone's attention, right? So I was going to have somebody help me with my phone video, and I thought, I want to show what you can create when you're by yourself and you got just a couple of tools. But so keep your camera movement in mind. You can do a slow push in, you can do a pan, something to think about if you're going to do a pan shot. We read our English from the left to right. Us as Americans are used to receiving information left to right. So when you pan, it's a good idea to go left to right. Again, it's not a rule. Rules are meant to be broken. One thing with the pan, or one thing with camera movement that I want you to be mindful of, is to match movement. If I know I want movement and I want it to be dynamic, I'm going to have a talking head, and now I'm going to go into my B-reel, and I want all my B-reel to have movement. Match that movement. If you're going to go left to right for each shot. Because when you're in post, if you're going left to right, and then the very next shot is a push-in or it's going right to left, is not to say you can't, but you want to match that movement. If you edit a left to right shot with a right to left shot, it's jarring and it looks funny. Bad edits are noticeable. Good edits, you don't even pay attention. You're watching it and you just get absorbed into the media. Pushing left to right. I think that's a pretty good explanation of camera, just to get y'all started. Excuse me.
Do you have a recommended order of breaking from one pick into the next or video into the next?
What do you mean?
Well, you said, left to right, right to left. You don't want to do that because then it looks choppy. So when you're putting things together, do you have a list of recommended ways to break into the next one?
No, that's a good question. Back to your pre-production, right? The more you plan it, the less margin of error later on. So if you literally, I've storyboarded things before, and you can say it, every shot's going to go left to right. So you know going into it, I'm going to have this movement. You can be mindful of that going into it. Sometimes you do just shoot. It's not to say you can't. You can have a left to right shot, and then you can have a static shot. It's not the end of the world. It's not, oh my God, my production's crap. I didn't listen to Dylan and go left to right only. You can mix it up and you can do that. But I do highly recommend you don't go left to right, then right to left. Or match speeds. If you're doing a panning shot, and then the very next shot's much quicker, or you're zooming in followed by a much quicker zoom in, that is jarring. You want to match speeds, you want to match directions. But again, rules are meant to be broken. It's not a constant. It's just something to keep in mind. Next up is sound. Sound's a tricky little devil. Sound, as they say, is half a video. Similar to good edits, good sound can kind of go unnoticed because you get absorbed into it and you just see it. Weird sound or bad sound is jarring and takes you out of the experience. That's why I have this mic on. I also have a mic on that camera, so I got backup audio. When you're recording sound, again, rule of threes. Three main sounds I want to focus on for the purpose of the cell phone video. similar to how I mentioned in pre-production or in the treatment. For example, we'll use Brian with Hive 309. Hive 309 is a commercial space. It's a community collaborative office space, and we did some videos recently. I like to punch it up and get your attention, right? We could have went with some hard rock and roll or some hip hop and gone real fast paced. That wouldn't fit his branding. That wouldn't go in a line with the corporate space so much. Maybe if you're really trying to do something out of the box and get their attention, but if you want it in line and you want everything to be branded and have the same feel, something in that genre might be more suited for more of a corporate type of audio track or vibe. Something as simple as the background track can make all the difference in the world. Is it a corporate boom, doom, doom, doom sound, or is it hard hip hop or rock and roll? You're gonna have a very different experience watching the exact same video. The same thing can be said for sound effects. Back to that transition, right? You're doing your pans, or you're going, say from I have an example here in a minute where I'm inside and I say, let's go take a look outside. I don't just go to the very next shot. You could, there's nothing wrong with that. I deliberately do a transition. While that transition happens, you hear, and something as small, they call that sound design. Being deliberate with just a tiny sound effect during a transition, or if a logo pops up. That's cool, that logo can pop up. But if you add a little glimmer, cling, or a little pop sound, it just has so much more impact. So background track and sound effects have tremendous impact and change the entire experience of the video. And then possibly, I don't want to say one's more important than the other, because you can have a video with no voice and it can have impact. You can have words pop up all day. No one's got to say a word. That can still be a solid video. But if you're going to add voice, it is highly recommended to capture your audio on some sort of mic. This is a less than $30 microphone. It is not high-end. It is not crispy clear. It's not 32-bit, super techie, fantastic audio you can manipulate. But when you plug that into your phone, I don't want to say it's good enough, but it's good enough. It eliminates that hiss. When you have just your phone on, it captures that hum. It captures that lady in the other room. It captures that car going by. It captures your voice, all on the same track. It's messy and it sounds bad. That's one of the things you would hear it and go, why does it sound? It would take you out of the experience, and you'll be able to point your finger at it and say, that video's not as good as it could have been. This guy right here will eliminate a lot of that background noise. Even a super inexpensive mic will isolate your voice, and it will take your phone production to another level. I'm going fast enough here, we should have time. I have an example video that shows you a phone recording with and without the mic. That's the Maybesta mic. There are links to all this. There are other mics too. I'm not saying this is the one, this is the go-to. This is the one I landed on to show you the example. Are you a Ford guy, a Chevy guy, or a Toyota guy or girl? There's all different brands, there's all different mics, but from my experience, this was not bad for an inexpensive option. And then, because this is meant to be productions on a budget, being in the production space, I outsource third-party assets. There's a ton, again, Ford, Chevy, or Toyota. There's Artlist.io, I use Motion Array, there's so many of them. But here's a free website that you can get sound assets. They have some background music, they have some sound effects. It's not the biggest library, but it is a free resource, and you can get sound assets from freesound.org. It's worth noting, some of them you can just download and use and no one cares. Some of them, when you go to download, whoever created them asked you to attribute them or mention them, shout them out. It's literally a little thing you copy and paste. And more than likely, if you post this on YouTube, no one's going to come after you, but it's nice to respect the artist's wishes. But this is a great free resource for sound assets. Then post-production. Post-production is an animal. It is, I could give you a 12-week course on this, and we'd still just scratch the surface. There's no way I can teach you post-production standing up here talking about it. I do, however, why is that funky looking? Let me see if I can scroll it down a bit. I do, however, have a free app recommendation. It's VN. I included the logo there, so if you're trying to download it, you know you're on the right one. Oh, well. I made a little bit over a 1-minute video on this app, and the first time I did it, it took me about an hour. And I was like, I want to do it again, now that I know what I'm doing. Second time I did it, it took me about 30 minutes. And I was like, I want to record this on my phone screen and show you guys in real time. Here's me doing it. do a how-to video, because I wanted it to all be me and be branded Fly Square, and let you know you can do this on your phone, all in-house, and it's easy and it's free, VN. Well, when I was doing it Sunday night around midnight and I was getting stressed, I was like, I'm struggling to get this around the 10-minute mark. And I edit on Premiere Pro. I used to be a Final Cut guy. Final Cut changed their format, and then I just jumped into Premiere. DaVinci Resolve has a free version, and that is a quality, they call it non-linear editing system, or software. And DaVinci Resolve has the paid version with all the bells and whistles. DaVinci Resolve also has the non-paid version. So if you have a desktop computer and you want to get real serious about this, DaVinci Resolve might be an option. But you also have your iMovie Maker, and Windows has Clipchamps. I think that's what it's called. Any Windows folks in here can confirm that? It used to be Windows Movie Maker and they changed it. But there are free apps and there are free non-linear editing softwares you can use. You don't have to pay for, like I pay for Adobe Premiere, the Adobe Creative Suite. If you're doing this all in-house and you don't have a huge marketing budget, you don't have to pay for these third-party sites. So here's a free app you can use. This guy explains it better than I would have. I did want it to be me. I did want it to be Fly Square branded. And beside the stress of it, whatever, I really thought, this guy knows this app. He has the vocabulary. It looks great. He's got things highlighted. He explains it so much better. I would have gave you the most rudimentary, and it would have been me stumbling over it. And anyway, this is a much better resource, and it saved me the time than what I would have put together. So if you want to explore this and you want to learn VN, this link will get you there. It's about a 20-minute video. This link is available on the blog, on the long format version of this class. Is the last link at the bottom. Vivian, did you have a question?
How is that compared to Capcom?
I don't know Capcom. A while ago back, I was approached for a big project, and they wanted to know if you cannot do it, or if you're busy, are you able to outsource it, or do you have other resources? I did not want to say no to this big opportunity. So I got out the yellow pages. Okay, I got out the internet, and I got a dozen people in town or within a stone's throw away that do production. And anywhere from the guy that charges more than me to the guy that edits on his phone. I'm sorry, but if you edit on your phone, I have a Premiere Pro workflow, you're not a fit for this opportunity. But then I knew that guy, he does solid work, and he edits from his phone. So when I was putting this class together, when I knew I was going to move into the phone space, I approached him again, like, hey, what apps do you use on your phone? He said, actually, for mine, typically I use 2 to 3. This is a great general editing software. But if you want something flashy, you want motion graphics, you might want to grab another app to put your logo in, and now you can do something flashy with it. You export that. Now you have a little video file of your flashy logo. Put that into your VN app. Now, by using 2 apps, you got a much higher production value looking little phone video. So that's just to let you know that you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars a month for editing software. You literally can do it all from your phone. And it is hard. That's even, maybe just my age is starting to show up a little bit. If I'm ordering concert tickets, I don't want to do it on my phone. It's frustrating. The format's different. I don't care for it. I much more prefer to be on my computer. But maybe these kids these days are like, ha, old guy, look at you. I can do it on my phone. But VN works. It's on your phone. You can do it all in-house. You can shoot it on your phone. You can get audio from freesound.org all on your phone. A while ago back, I didn't use the Google Drive. Is there anyone in here that doesn't use Google Drive or some sort of cloud-based application? If you don't want to raise your hand, I understand. A while ago back, I wasn't in the Google space. A friend of mine who's been in business longer than me, who I asked a lot of questions, he strongly encouraged me to do it. And it's out of my comfort zone. Why do I got to operate in that space? Oh my gosh, I can't imagine not operating without the Google Drive now. I move files around daily. If I want literally a logo, I can put it on there from my phone to there. It's a fantastic way to transfer stuff from device to device, from platform to platform. Google Drive is where it's at. So all in-house, I can go on freesound.org, download something, put it on my Google Drive, or just upload it to my phone. You can do everything all from your phone if you want to. But I suggest the hybrid approach. Using the computer is just, at least to me, seems like it gives you a few more options. But it can all be done from your phone. That's what the gist of this presentation is about. Very quickly, before I embarrass myself and get into a couple of videos, because I'm on camera here, distribution. Oftentimes in pre-production, you want to know what you're going to do with your video. And this is another whole class in itself. But what are you doing with it? Are you just posting on social media? You're going to blast it in your newsletter, your email? Is it going to be on your website and hang there for a while? Is it going to be a pre-roll? I'm not talking about some Snoop Dogg stuff. A pre-roll, bad joke. A pre-roll. A pre-roll is like when you're watching Netflix, those videos that pop up, or before YouTube. There's different, like Ted Wolf or different marketing agencies in town. They can take your video and they can tell you everywhere you want to put it. And you can put it in front of Netflix or YouTube. And in short, that's what I call pre-rolls, or all the way to television. You can run it on your local TV networks. That's just a quick snapshot of what you can do with your video once you have it. And where did it go? There's a really cool video I'm going to show you guys before we get into this part. Before I embarrass myself and you see me on camera. Excuse me. Who remembers which variable I said is the most important? Light. Thank you. Check this out real quick. This video shows you how by simply changing the proximity of a light to a subject, how drastically it can change the way it looks. When I say you're writing in light and you're sculpting a scene, this is a screaming example of that. You can see the highlight in her eye as it's rotating around. Just look at how it changes the shape of her face. And I'll spare you the 2 minutes, but you get the point, right? Light is a very important variable when creating your content. And then, who wants to see a video I created with my cell phone?
Me.
I'm much better behind the camera. There's a behind-the-scenes video that we will not get to because I want to open the floors to questions. But here's a little something I put together on my phone that runs just over a minute. This is a hard watch. Welcome to Fly Square Studios. This video is being created using a cell phone, a couple of inexpensive lights, and a super cheap microphone to demonstrate a low-budget video production. While you're here, let's take a closer look at my editing bay. This is my Mac Studio, where I chop up all the hits. All of our videos come out of this machine right here. Paired with this Mac Studio monitor, we deliver excellence with every project. Right outside the workstation, you know I have to surround myself with inspiration. I have toys and collectibles from some of my favorite pop culture icons. Speaking of inspiration, I just got my studio space back up and running. Let's go take a look. I finally have a space where I can create. And all my gear is located in one central location, which makes pre-production that much easier. Well, as much as I could go on and on about daily operations here at Fly Square, I got work to do. And you know what they say, you don't got to go home, but you can't stay here. That's embarrassing, but that's just to show you what you can do with a phone. But something worth noting, as the maker of this, as a video guy, when I saw that opening shot of my computer, it was wobbly and I cringed. But if you want to move forward with phone video production, we're going to get into hopefully the practical side of this, or the demonstration side in a moment. These are super inexpensive. This is like a $100 light. This little guy's like $10 and a $30 mic. For like a $200-300 investment, you can have enough toys to really start to elevate your production game with a cell phone. But there's also other tools you can get. To eliminate that shake, they got little phone gimbals. You know, DJI makes the phone gimbal. You can put your phone on a little gimbal, and gimbals are fantastic. They got little gyro motors that literally balance it, and it'll float your camera along. So for a small investment, a phone gimbal, if you really want to move forward in this space, I would recommend a phone gimbal. And again, on the blog, there's links to all that. There's the essentials list, and then there's the extra recommended accessories. That includes the gimbal. So when I see that, I'm like, oh, that's terrible. Let me tell them, get a gimbal so you don't have that shakiness. We got just enough time here. I'm going to show you a couple more things. I might show you the behind the scenes, but it's 4 minutes and it's embarrassing. So I'll show you what that mic sounds like. Stand by. This is a combination of camera video and phone video. When I'm outside, that was shot on my phone with that little mic. So you can hear in real time a real example of cell phone video using the mic that I recommended. Do you want to increase the quality of your cell phone video production? This might be the answer. The Maybesta wireless lavalier mic. I just got back from a little test run with this guy. Let's go hear how it sounds. Right now, the microphone's plugged in and the receiver's on. So the phone should be recording this audio. Let's hear how it sounds. That's the ambient noise. There's just a little bit of wind blowing there. Let's check out the proximity. All right, walking back up on the phone. Let's see how that audio sounds as I get closer and closer with that wind blowing. All right, now I'm gonna shut the mic off and I wanna hear what the phone's onboard audio sounds like. All right, that's blinking now. This light's off. That should be the phone's onboard audio. You should be getting all that wind noise, maybe a car going by on the highway over there, and my voice all at the same time on the same audio track. This should have separated my voice. It sounded a little bit better. Let's go check it out. So what'd you think? Let's listen to it one more time. Here is just the phone's onboard mic. You should be getting all that wind noise. And here's the audio using the wireless mic. That's the ambient noise. There's just a little bit of wind blowing there. I think for less than $30, this is a nice addition to anyone's gear kit. No, it doesn't eliminate all the background noise, but it does get rid of that hiss, and it does isolate your voice enough that I think it definitely elevates the quality of your video content. All right. What do you think? Do you think that little mic does the trick? It's not the most magical thing in the world, but it's not too shabby. I want to show a quick practical example of lighting that little pillow right there, just so you kind of get an idea of a key light and a rim light. Without embarrassing myself, showing you that behind the scenes. If y'all want to see that, reach out to me and I'll shoot you a link. While I am doing this light thing, are there any questions? Whoa, ladies, one at a time, one at a time. I think I saw Jen Johnson's hand go up first.
So, do you recommend showing the video once and downloading it differently for each site? Because like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, they all have different dimensions for their video that you can place there.
You can be deliberate about that. I kind of look at videos in two ways. Even when I do Instagram, oftentimes I don't mind it being landscape. As a production guy, I prefer that landscape 16:9. Unless I know I'm making a reel. Oftentimes for client work, I will offer them, if I give them a talking head, for instance, I will give you that in case you're going to put it on YouTube or you're going to put it on Facebook. Then I'll reformat it and I'll flip it to the 16:9 reel. So the major distinction I make typically is either reel or regular video. And one thing to consider is when I see it on my computer, it looks one way. Or excuse me, in my editing software, it looks one way. When I crank it out on my computer, it looks another way. When I put it into Google Drive, it looks a third way. And literally, when I put it on any social media platform, it looks a fourth way. Every single time the color and the dynamics of it changes, everything has its own compression. Every video that you put on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, it gets compressed and it has its own little digital language. So it's gonna change the way it looks, and you can drive yourself crazy trying to match it or get it to all be identical. Sometimes just good enough, or you gotta let be. But did that halfway answer your question? Different formats for different things sometimes, and it's gonna compress it and change it anyway, so it's kind of out of your power in some ways.
Yeah. Is there an app or anything that you could use to put your video in that would format it for each platform, other than having to go in and use each one individually?
In like Premiere Pro, when you go to export it, typically I export the same codec every time, like H.264. It's a universal codec that everything can use, and it will compress it in its own way. It does have specifications if you want it to be YouTube or you want it to be Instagram, and maybe that's part of why my images are looking funky, right? I like that. I'm actually going to experiment with that and see how different they look. But within the higher end editing softwares, you can format it specifically for the individual platforms. So yes. Andy.
Okay, I know that the VN was for your phone.
Mhm.
I do like to edit on my computer. Can you edit, can you use that on your computer?
Yes, ma'am. VN, and good question, and thanks for pointing that out. VN is a phone application, but it also has the desktop as well.
And have you used Canva? Because that's free, and that's what, to answer Jen's question, I feel like they have, I'll add you to my team.
I'm on there, I pay for it, but you're very limited if you do the free version.
I do the free version of Canva, and I've really considered doing the paid version because
It's totally worth it.
has anyone gone to Victoria's class?
Yeah.
Has been to Victoria's class? Does she dive into it? Like, I'm guessing there's a lot involved in Canva. And,
There's so much to it.
well, and that's the thing too, right? Like, I live in my bubble. I'm a Premiere guy, and I'm like, wait, let me show you phone stuff. I know you can do phone stuff, and I wanted to learn this to show you and pass this along, and just give you a snapshot of it. Because even if I knew this inside and out, in 1 hour I can only tell you so much. But like, if you're into this and you want to learn it, the resources are out there. I want this to be a resource. I love to package it up and box it and have it be everything you need to know, but that will take a long time to build out. This is a starting point. The information's out there. If y'all are really curious and you want to continue to learn this, and again too, I wanted to encourage, don't create something like this is the video that's going out on my website, or I'm going to post this. Play, mess up, break it. Do 10 videos that you know no one's going to see, and then that 11th one, when this gets good, show everybody because you're proud. Maybe you get good on number 3, but you get the idea.
Do you have any recommendations on how to eliminate glare of glasses on video?
Simply put, no. When you have a reflective surface and you have a light, you're going to get that glare. A lot of times it is kind of the angle of it, or I don't have a good answer for that, so no, off top I don't know. I will see if there's something particular that I think I've seen in productions. I always recognize, when on mine, not to say I don't care, but if I see this light, there is a white light in my glasses. On other productions, it seems like there's some sort of green hue to it, so I wonder if that's deliberate, that they're trying to eliminate that glare, but off top I don't have a good answer. Sorry.
Sometimes raising or lowering the light just a little bit so that it's above where it normally would be.
Actually, she makes a fantastic point. Imagine why that glare's there. It's due to the angle. It's hitting your light. It's hitting your face. If you raise that light and tilt it, you're still going to get pretty much that same effect, but unless you're looking up now, that angle's eliminated. So Steph had the answer. Just move your light.
When you look up, if you're looking around.
No, for sure.
It comes in,
For sure.
even if it's up there. But another, somebody suggested that you tip your glasses a little bit to not take the glare.
Gotcha.
And that's worked a little bit, but you can't have your glasses here.
No, right? You'd be like, only whenever I'm filming.
I can hide it a little better than you can.
No, right?
I move my ring light around on my computer. I like to find it. I mean, there's still some glare, but I'm like, all right, I can't. I don't want to be that person who's directly in the eye line of the ring light and there's just 2 ring lights.
That was one with 60 different eyes on me. I'm like, oh crap, I don't know if I have a great answer. I don't want to just start stumbling. I'm like, yeah, you can do this. I'm going to just say, I don't really know. And Steph's like, dude, just change the angle. And the others, Teresa.
Do you have a recommended length for the video? Like yours was 1 minute, but I'm talking about within your video you had, when you were going over your script, you showed different things in your studio. Is there a recommendation for how long those shorter clips are within the 1 minute? You showed your computer screen, and then you showed your collectibles.
I wouldn't anchor myself to a rule on that. Kind of like one thing with editing, anyone that knows me personally, editing is one of the most time-consuming portions of what I do. I get behind in my edits. It's something I'm working on outsourcing. Part of the editing process is you can imagine and execute it and look at it, and then you got to go back and play with it and tweak it. Then go back with it and play with it and tweak it. And then you play it through and you're like, pacing is huge. So for that, I like to play it through, and when it feels wrong, it's oftentimes a pacing issue, and pacing can be when those cuts come up, kind of what you're saying, the duration of them, right? So if it feels like it hangs too long, I can't say, yes, in a 1 minute video, go 5 seconds. Watch it, and what does it feel like? Does it feel like it hangs too long before Brian jumps in? Or oftentimes you will cut to the rhythm of the music. Sometimes it's very helpful to do it to the rhythm of the music. I used to get attached to that. If it beat, I'm cutting on that beat every time, right? It makes sense. Then I watch high-end productions, national campaigns, and sometimes it'll be a high-pitched thing or a high-paced thing. They don't necessarily cut every single time on that beat. It gets redundant. It gets, you can anticipate that. You don't have to cut on the beat. You can. That's all I'm saying. It's not a rule, or if it is a rule, you can break it. It's a stylistic choice.
Depends on what you want to emphasize more on.
I would say too, balance, because if you have a 1 minute video, you don't want 50 seconds on one frame and then 10 seconds on another. So
Right.
if you've got 3 frames, maybe it's 20 seconds each second.
Depends how many clips you have in that one.
And for that very example, the very first time I edited it and put that together, I did more clips and they were faster. And it was different variety. And then in the last one I did, I liked the slower ones. I just felt like, anyway, I changed it. And it went from a faster pace cut to a slower pace cut. And you as the viewer are none the wiser. So, Crystal.
Well, a comment or 2 or 3 behind, like, break it, do it, learn it, all the things. What about when you're a perfectionist and you don't know what you're doing and you're frustrated and overwhelmed? And I know you've heard this spiel from me before. But like,
Welcome to my world.
then it's like, I've heard, just get out there, just show your face, just do it. And so like, I've been doing that the past month, but how, like, is that helpful, or could that be damaging your brain? Like, I don't know, I get hung up in my head, so.
I'm glad you're here and I'm glad you asked that. I've seen that you've been doing video. I think I even jumped in and said, video gets results.
I'm like, yeah,
No, that's a perfect example, guys. Look, Crystal's like, I'm doing it. I don't know if I'm doing it right. I'm self-conscious. Me as a video guy, I didn't look and critique that and go, damn, Crystal, why didn't you light it better? Why does it sound bad? I'm just happy to see Crystal is creating video. The more you do it, the better you'll get. I get so anxious. I want to get better at public speaking. I know if I do this more, I will slow down and it will come more naturally. You'll get better at the things you do. You will get better at video. And back to your question, though. Some fancy artist a long time ago said, a work of art is never done. You just stop working on it. I could tweak every day. I could sit and that color doesn't match that color. I'm going to say this and then forget you heard it. Color correction is one of the things in editing I don't like. These cameras capture weird colors. Like I said, these have a weird green hue to them. Sony cameras naturally kind of have a purple or a green tint versus Canon or Nikon. Brand to brand have different color science. So me as the editor and the creator, I see the color and I hate it. I'll be like, oh my God, that color, that shot doesn't match that color shot. And then I'll fix it and then I'll crank it out and see it on my computer and I'm like, it looks okay. Then when I put it on YouTube, oh my God, it looks terrible again. And then so I can go back in and I do that. I will go back to the drawing board, try to get the colors better, go through that process again, and I look at it on YouTube again, and I'm like, it still looks like crap. Eventually, whenever I spit out, some of y'all, if you ever look at my stories, I'm like, it was a productive day. It will say sequence 1, 2, 3. I will knock out 7 to 54 of those. Somewhere I get sick of it, and I say it's good enough. If I don't notice it, but barely, the common average viewer is not going to notice it. So sometimes good enough has to be good enough. Don't approach it with a half-assed attitude like, oh, no one's going to notice. But don't kill yourself trying to perfect it when it's so minute that only you recognize it. For example, I'm a video guy. I'm a film guy. I know about color theory. I've seen The Matrix a bunch in the 90s, early 2000s. I didn't realize, it's The Matrix, it's green. That whole movie's green. If you look at it, there's so many hues of green, everything's green. And once I realized that, I'm like, oh wow, how did I miss that The Matrix is a green movie? So there is color science, there's color theory, you can do color, but at the end of the day, don't beat yourself over the head because every single little detail's not perfect or you'll never put anything out.
I think it's okay like, to be human and make mistakes too, right? I would forgive you. Like if you're gonna fudge up on your work, we could be friends because I love organizing. So I wouldn't even have you. But like if you say something incorrectly or like mix words, like I have such a hard time. I want to do it all over again. It's good business. Everyone will know that what I was trying to say.
Steph.
So once you have a video all done to your own non-perfection, where is your favorite place to put them and use them in branding, and what are some examples that you've done for businesses around here?
That's tricky because I feel like different videos serve different purposes. If it's going to be a branding film and they're going to use it for 1 to 5 years, it's going to be a bigger effort. You're going to want to hear all about that company culture. You're going to want to hear about what they do. You want to know about their why. Or is it a limited time engagement? Between now and Halloween, we're running this Halloween promo. Quick 30-second video, we're running this Halloween promo, right? So really back to when the pre-production, you want to think of your output and distribution. It matters what your goals are with the video, so there's not any one answer for that. You're a marketing lady. I think you're just trying to get me to talk.
I just wanted to
Illustrate that point.
some examples of what okay, you've got
No,
videos,
for sure.
now what to do.
Well, like, so yeah, for a branding film, for example, like say your Hive 309 is a new company. You want to be like, look what we're doing. Look at our new organization, right? You could have an email marketing campaign to share that with people. And then like for a limited time, we're offering this. So in addition to saying, here's who we are, here's what we're doing, now that you got their attention, go ahead and ask for that call to action. Or if like you're already up and going and not everybody knows who you are, but you're an established brand and you're doing a limited time engagement, then run some sponsored ads on Facebook or something and dial in your target demographic. Or there's no one right answer, and there's a lot to that.
Yeah. And I know like on some of the social platforms, if you put the link to say YouTube video, it'll pop up a thumbnail. Like does email do that as well? Like is there?
That's interesting.
How does email? I don't.
Different than your email service provider.
I was gonna say,
Because
I
if you
don't
use something like like a distributing mail, like a mailing list, there are options to embed video that have a review.
Excuse me. I've done links in videos before, and I think it almost shows, it might even show as an attachment. Ted Wolf sent me a video talking to me, and I was like, how did he do that? So I was like, you can do it, there's a way to do it. I looked into it off top, I did it once to say how to do it, and I've never done it again. There is a way, you gotta tell your email, I want to embed videos. It's either a widget or some code or text. It's something you put into your Google, so now Google goes, oh, you want this. It literally is next to send, another little logo pops up. You can embed video into your your Gmail emails. So instead of it just being a link or taking you somewhere else, it's an actual video sitting right there in your email, similar to your MailChimp or something. Other third-party stuff has that ability. You can embed it, or you can trick Gmail into letting you embed it. It's out there. I even might have a YouTube video on it somewhere. So if anybody's curious about that, follow up with me, and I'll try to find you a link. It is 1 o'clock. I had this room till 1. I was worried breakdown was going to take a little bit, and they said, though, nobody's going to come in here after 1, so if you want to hang out and ask some more questions, I got time if you do.
Thanks, Dylan. Great job.
Thank you all so much.